All right, guys, welcome to the very first episode of the Like Father, Like Son podcast. My name is Michael Tirpak. I'm going to be your host, and I came with two of the best leaders on the planet. We've been actually planning this podcast for a long time.
10 years. Something like that, yeah.
And we here, baby. We
finally
here.
Yeah, what did it take? An act of Congress to make this happen.
Yeah, literally 10 years of planning, but we are a faith-based, family-centered podcast. And we have tons of vision. We'll talk literally everything. We're going to talk ministry. We'll talk leadership. We'll talk finance. I mean, at this point, PD is like a real estate guru. We're trying to buy a building for
an accidental
real estate guru. He's a CEO. I mean, Pastor Devon just launched his own business. So we have.
Make no mistake, I'm a CEO too, dog. Let's get it.
That's what I was calling you.
I was trying to think of an alliterative thing to say other than what it stands for, but I couldn't come up with it.
Now, I have made absolutely $0 for them, but I got the title, baby. I got the title.
So we're super excited to host you guys.
I made $4. I made $4.
Thank you, Pastor Devon. Pastor Deryck. No, I'm not going to do that. All right, so we're going to hop into the episode, and we hope you guys obviously subscribe. We actually, by the way, have another podcast that we did, and we can link it in the show notes, but we did over 50 episodes of the 508 podcast, which was fantastic. Pops was on it. We were on it. We had our whole team.
Helping people navigate their 20s. Loads of content in this playlist. So go to that playlist on the 508 podcast. Be super helpful for a lot of you guys.
Yeah. I also want to say, shout out to the McCarthy family. Do y'all like our studio or what?
Come on. It's fire.
Yeah, look at the wood. I mean, this place is gorgeous.
We're on a second level of a barn that they just constructed. It looks incredible. It looks like Noah's Ark, to be honest. I feel like we're about to ship out to sea, and we're just, I don't know where I'm going with this metaphor.
Oh my gosh.
He already went to Noah's Ark, bro? How did we get
just
here?
Wood everywhere. I just feel like a dove's going to fly out of my shoulder.
So, Pops, why don't we give a little bit of context with why we're doing this? Maybe even some vision, too, because I remember having a conversation with you 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, when you were talking about just some vision of I really want to do a podcast. I want my son to be on it. Obviously, like father, like son. Where did that kind of vision
there's
come
a lot
from?
there's a lot of podcasts that you guys know. There's a lot of podcasts out there. And so yes and no, I want to do one. I wanted to maximize the influence that God has given me, but at the same time, I didn't want to just do what everybody else was doing, when it was sexy to do a podcast versus is it actually meaningful? So just been sitting on it for a little while, what's our distinctive? And I think one of the things that I felt strong was a distinctive for our ministry is a connection to our family. That, there's, in this case, at this time and season, this connection between Devon and I, but it's really a generational thing, which we'll kind of get into. But we did a couple of things together, and I think we titled a series of messages we did together, Like Father, Like Son, and that just kind of popped for me. There was a verse in the Bible that I was looking at before we started this, and it's in Philippians 2, and the reference is around verse 19. It says, because as a son with his father, he has served with me in the work of the gospel. And I thought, that's one of the greatest joys of my life is that I get to do ministry with my son, with my family. One of my greatest testimonies or legacy is that all my kids love Jesus and love the church, and by the grace of God still love Stacy and I. And but to be able to serve together in the work of the gospel, son and father, was that's it. That was kind of the connection. And then kind of attached to that or tethered to that is this idea that you don't see that very often.
Yeah.
I mean, how often do you see, the average pastor, Devon was talking about this in the sermon just recently, 7 years and they bail. That's the average lifespan of a pastor. So the thought of
the stat was 1 in 10 pastors retire a pastor. And so we have 3 generations of it.
So the idea. So
I'm trying to not jack it up.
I was going to say, bro, are you bailing?
That's mad pressure.
There's a lot of weight on you, buddy.
Yeah,
there's a lot of weight on you. But to see that, so the rough in short is just how can we bring, generational leadership to broken generations? What can we do to bring generational leadership to broken generations? So that's a heart for the podcast, and hopefully that distinctive will stand out.
And having longevity and health, I think, matters a lot. You said something before: is God builds His house relationally, and generationally.
Yeah.
And so the relational piece
I
is a
learned that
big
from
deal.
Larry Stockstill.
Such a
Shout out
powerful,
Larry Stockstill.
such a powerful principle.
Another legacy.
But I would also say when it comes to, yes, like father, like son, but a part of your role and responsibility now is, and mine actually, is I feel like my responsibility is to identify spiritual sons and daughters and bring them to our father and our mother of the house. And so it's not just a like father, like son biologically, but even spiritually speaking.
Totally.
And now our church, we have a very familial culture. And a part of the family building the house familial wise, it creates this just healthy dynamic of we have a father, we have a mother, which I feel like could be unpacked right there as just a mother of the house. One thing that Pops has said historically has been we have fatherless homes and motherless churches. So we have a mother of the house too. And you see all these spiritual sons and daughters being raised up. And it's just such a healthy dynamic in our house. There's been so many beautiful things that come
There's all these little nuances. I know we're kind of spinning out a little bit, but you know, one of the reasons something like this doesn't happen is a lot of times I think it's because senior pastors, let's just say me and Devon, I'll just use the father to son, and on the ministry side. I think a lot of times there are few people in my seat, and I'm not saying I've got this all worked out, but there's people in my seat that are wanting to do something very closely with their son. I think fear and insecurity are the two big things that keep this from happening. Insecure leader, you know, it's like, who am I? And I think his generation is saying, I don't want to get passed by. Like I need to go now. And I'm like, I don't want to release now.
So important.
That father-son thing doesn't happen spiritually or generationally the way it needs to. You know, you see that in the life of like David and Solomon. What kind of leader would David have had to been to get a heart for building a church and a temple for God that he would never see? Imagine how he must have been so secure to do that. And he participated, obviously, in a measure of it, but it was his son that built it. So God said, no, I love what's in your heart, Deryck, but Devon's going to do actually. I think Devon will far exceed what I've done in this ministry, but I do have a responsibility currently, like David did, to rule and lead and do the things that I'm doing to set up that future. But I don't think this happens because insecure senior leaders and fearful next generation leaders.
Did you feel that with your dad? So, I mean, at least maybe we can unpack a little bit of like the history of Connect. How did we get here? Because this church, even since I've been here 5 or 6 years. And it's funny, before I came to Connect, I was at larger churches and nobody knew that I was unhealthy. Everyone thought, it's so funny. Dev was, when I came,
I knew you were unhealthy. I'll tell you that. You were jacked up.
Dev literally goes, dude, I thought I was inheriting like a healthy, good leader. And
I was
then
like, this dude's coming from this church. I'm fired up. Let's go. And he's like, help.
Yeah. It was so hard to like, I couldn't hide in Connect Church.
Yeah.
I couldn't hide.
Yeah.
And it was a unique environment that was set up. So obviously that started at some point. I mean, I don't know the whole story, but at some point that shifted. It sounded like there was a shift in model and there was a shift in vision, and God was really speaking to you about like, what do I want to do in this church moving forward? So maybe you can unpack that a little bit, because you had the same dynamic that Dev has with you before.
Much worse
with your
though.
father.
Much harder than Devon. You know, not to say it wasn't a piece of cake for Dev, but it was.
I mean, you're pretty difficult to serve under for years in my life. I'm kidding. This is probably the last episode of the Like Father, Like Son podcast. Appreciate you guys. Like and subscribe.
That we launch. You know, Devon could finish this, but you know, one of the things that why that can happen sometimes, because I think a lot of churches, and I'm not judging anybody else, because we were preoccupied with this for a while too, but they're building crowds, not churches. You know, like they're erecting tents, not planting trees. So I think we were, God was in a sense, because of the generational prioritization that I think he wanted to be a distinctive of our ministry, he wasn't going to allow me to erect a monster tent at the expense of a strong tree. And so I had to have the roots first. So I see it now. I didn't see it at the time. It was painful. I was like, what? Where's the fruit? why isn't this thing growing and blowing and killing it? And, you know, and I kind of looked at myself compared to all the classic issues that everybody goes through.
Comparison.
But now comparison kills, right? But now I look back and I was like, God was protecting me from success.
Wow.
You know, so that something could be truly generational. Something could outlast. I mean, Jesus spent 30 years preparing, and 3 years he did ministry, and the 3 years he prepared to leave. And then he handed everything off. So like there's successful ministries, a lot of prep, then you kill it, then you get out of the way.
Tell him about the word you got, because it was, if you wait a little longer. Tell him about that story.
Yeah. Many
I don't want to give it for you. I want.
Many years ago, when I was deciding whether to stay or go. My father was the pastor. I was processing, like, am I supposed to be here, not be here? And I had 2 words the Lord gave me. One was, if you're, I felt like the Lord spoke to me, not like audibly, just an impression, that you're married to this ministry unless it divorces itself from you. You're called to this ministry. And then he was preparing me in a second word that I had later, not too far later. I was looking around at everything. I was complaining. I was whining, to the Lord. We call that prayer, but it's really complaining.
Everyone's whining.
Jeremiah, I was a weeping prophet. And he said, son, if you wait a little longer, you'll go further faster. You'll go further faster if you wait a little longer. And it took, 12, 15 years before I saw, oh my gosh, now I get it.
Did you have a dream back then though? Like, I was thinking of that today, because obviously you guys are living in the dream, and like you guys are literally building something. And a lot of people too don't have what you guys have in terms of like, you have an active dream that you're supposed to be building, and it's blessed and the favor of God is on it.
Right.
Did you have like conflict back then when it was like your dad was leading and you had a dream and you were like wrestling with that piece of it? Is that why you were complaining or frustrated, or was it?
Yeah, most of our conflict was around methodological, and I would say also vision. Like my dad's vision was very large. I was kind of like the opposite. Dad was like, I want to change the character of society from the New York border to the sea. And I was like, I want to reach my neighbor across the street. I don't think he knows we exist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I think God made me like almost like the counterpart to that extreme, is like, I want you to build from the inside out. So for a long time, I didn't get big grandiose vision. I got like how to reach that neighbor and get him to start coming to church. And so in a sense, God said, I want you to work on how to do that. The how to, the why will come a little bit clearer along the way. The why is reach your neighbor. The why is connect people that are right here. So we struggled because he was like 25,000 member church. Now, what's interesting, years later, we are in a non-denominational, multifaceted, multi-generational, multicultural, multi-site church.
Yeah.
Now, so like
multifaceted,
a lot of
maybe explain that real quick.
Multifaceted would be
people
like,
don't know about our businesses.
We do a lot for kids. So we do a lot. We have businesses that fund ministry. So we have 3 early learning centers, a private Christian school that's crushing it.
That's blowing
Absolutely
up right now,
crushing.
especially with the conditions of the world.
Yeah, the world is just saying, please do more. So we have to aggressively grow that. And then
Dominican Republic.
We do a lot in a third world country, in the Dominican Republic.
Yep.
We have 9 schools in the Dominican Republic serving, hundreds of kids. So,
it's kids everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's
it's kids. Yeah. I never thought if you asked me to work in the nursery, I'd probably duct tape the kids to the walls, but somehow I lead kids, from a different seat. My own kids I love. It's everybody else's kids I gotta be careful about. No,
One thing that was different though was going back to like my experience coming to the church was you guys always had the vision, and even within the 508, it was like, we're gonna build kings and queens, and it was people focused. And it was interesting because you were talking about like building crowds. Like that is usually, I found myself like engulfed in almost what felt like a wave, because I was part of it. I was part of the crowd, and it felt like this like wave that like, oh, they see a leader in me, so it was enticing. But
Yeah.
and it's not that they're doing the wrong ministry; they're doing great ministry. But it was, for me, I couldn't become the man that I knew I needed to, and I was called to be in an environment like that. I didn't even know it either, though. I thought that was Christianity, like that was the whole model. But it sounds like as you transitioned and going back to like your relationship with your dad and now with Devon, things shifted and changed, and now we're basically doing a whole new model of the church and with vision to do other stuff. That's why we were joking about CEO, but it's true. It's like there's businesses involved, and it's really high level ministry, but also marketplace stuff, which is like, so how do you guys manage that? Because you guys are both walking into it. Maybe we can talk about the dynamic of your future and the vision that you guys have, and like father, like son, and you also have 2 sons. So
one thing that comes to my mind is when you're talking about our story and our history, I want to talk about like inheritance and legacy, because one thing that he talked about, that he taught me, was inheritance what you leave in their hands, legacy is what you leave in their hearts. And so inheritance, as far as businesses, ministries, things like that, like we are building territories, assets, and all these kind of things, and it's significant. Like this is
it's not a mom and pop shop.
This is not
anymore.
a mom and pop shop operation any longer. Definitely not. It's really grown tremendously and explosively grown the last couple of years. But how dangerous would it be to build a bunch of stuff and give it away to a generation that has no wisdom to be able to steward it well? And so when you're talking about like, you're talking about growing people, I use this phrase, we're not here to grow a big church, but big people. And really at the core of that,
we also say we don't buy people, we build them.
Yeah, we don't buy leaders, we build leaders.
We know we have to work inside on that.
We always are investing and doing enrichment stuff. And that's my favorite part about our church, our ministry, our staff, is there's constant investment. But I believe this is that discipleship cannot be mass produced. You can't just blanket statements, classes, information. The church is over sermonized and over information overload. You need physical touch. You need a father's touch. You need a big brother's voice. You need sons and daughters. You need all different generations, the father, the son, and their kids, because a wise man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. So God works generationally. And I think at the core of that is we're building things, but more than that, we're building people who can build big things. And I love that about our church is we're not about a production. We're about people. Yeah. And I do think the modern era of church and of ministry does a lot of that.
But I think your generation and younger is hungry.
Oh, yes.
For that balance between, moving mountains, moving and shaking and, all that stuff, like big meetings, but they want family. They want the familiar, the approachability. Like one of the things that I'm always working on is, it's not easy sometimes too, is like how to be, my job description is oversimplified this way, but I lead, I feed, I father. Lead, feed, father. The most significant one right now, hands down, is father. I'm a father.
I think our generation wants that so badly because we didn't have it.
Yeah.
Like historically, we were, I think, one of the first generations that really historically and statistically did not have a lot of fathering involved. So we want more intimate relationship like that.
So that it's not just a chronological title either too. So sometimes it's a spiritual component, spiritual father. And so I can sometimes be saying, I'm 55, 56 next month. I can be talking to a 50-year-old and they can still consider me their spiritual father. It's more, it's just something, there's a hole that's missing. And when I decided to step into that, regardless of chronology, regardless of experience, regardless of even like a perfect relationship with my dad, because honestly, there were things about it that were awesome and there were things about it that were broken. And I just said, I'm going to accept that role for the sake of bringing this generational healing to broken generations. And it's amazing how just even a subtle supplementation of what is broken in the family does within the local church.
100%. It's
a massive distinction within Connect that I think is like a secret sauce that a lot of people won't step into. They don't want to navigate the messy of that, Yeah.
You know what story comes out to me as you talk about that is just recently, we just kind of talked about it, green room backstage before service. somebody came up to you first, and then they scheduled an appointment with me, I think the week after. And I was reporting to you, you reported to me, and I go, yeah, this guy just came up to me, and he just like sat me down, like literally just had one question for the whole meeting, and he just goes, will you be my pastor? And I was like, just with his honor, with his humility, with the questions he asked, the preparation beforehand, I was like, of course, like I would love to invest in you. And I was telling you that, honestly, more as a son telling his dad of like, Pops, are you proud of me? Isn't that pretty cool?
Right?
And he goes, that's awesome. I love that. Because he came to me and he kind of defined the relationship, and he just asked me to be his spiritual father. So you have the father and son who has another real spiritual son now, and I'm his pastor, but that's his spiritual father.
Right.
And it doesn't mean he's not pastoring him, but it was just a beautiful symbol of like what can happen in a family dynamic that's healthy.
Yeah.
Is he's coming to me for like spiritual guidance, pastoral leadership, maybe some decision making, direction.
Yep.
But a father is really what he needed to. Because what's the scripture? Paul says it like this: you have many teachers, you don't have many fathers.
Not many.
And the fact that our ministry can provide all of that, I think, is one of the things I'm most proud of right now in our church context.
Yeah.
So if you're a youth pastor, or maybe just and you can maybe give a little context of what you do around the nation in terms of like mentoring pastors, and let's just say there's a few of them, they're struggling. They don't know the next step. They're feeling the tension of the comparison because they're seeing these large churches do amazing things with a lot of fruit, and they're feeling insecure and feeling like, I understand what you're saying about like building people, but that's really like a slow burn. And I don't really feel like a father because I'm like just beginning to be a father, like thoughts like that in their head. How do you counsel, like what are the behind the scenes stuff with some of those leaders and some of the youth pastors and stuff like that we've been talking with? Like what do you say to them?
Well, I believe in the process of leadership, not just the promotion of leaders, so I think that is what a lot of the
sounds like a sermon series.
Young guys.
That sounds so fire, Dad.
Don't.
Write that down.
Someone get that.
Bennett, jot that down. We're going to do that for the Leadership Expo this summer.
People are looking, you use like a youth pastor or a worship pastor, they're looking for their next gig. Whereas David started behind the scenes soothing Saul's spirit.
Yeah.
One-on-one. Like, don't underestimate how significant that kind of a situation is. Or David's just a great example of so many like incredible things. Like he was appointed king, 13, 15, some people say, and yet he wasn't anointed king until he was 30.
The process
of leadership was 13 to 30. But then he became one of the greatest kings who was ever known because he embraced the process of leadership instead of trying to skip it and self-promote like Absalom did. Absalom went down on the gate and started basically saying, here's my IG account, follow me.
Yeah. Which is the tension of every young leader, because not even that they necessarily want to do it, but because they see it.
Exactly.
And they don't feel good.
Unfortunately. That's why I'm trying to be more, that's why this podcast exists. Because people need examples of like, you know what? Some of these, if you microwave ministry, you're going to get burned. You're going to get so
freaking nugget. That was a metaphor and an analogy at the same freaking time. That was a fat nugget, Pops.
I don't know how this is happening right now. What's in this water? What's in this water?
I feel a ghost right now. That was crazy.
But I just think
you microwave ministry, you're going to get burned? Oh my God. That's the best line you ever had. That was the craziest line. That was fire.
You're killing my flow.
Sorry, that was
the flow's gone, man.
Dude, it's over. You don't need any more flow.
I'm handing off to Devon. Take it. But I just get concerned. I just think a lot of people, they're in it too fast.
Yeah.
A lot of times they're in the wrong role in the first place. So a lot of times you got second chair leaders in first chair seats.
Oh, unpack it.
So I think so many guys are frustrated because they're never designed for that seat in the first place.
Because can I add something real quick? I think a lot of people go into the number one role because they were frustrated, not because they were sent.
Yes.
is they were frustrated with their leadership that was above them. So what they didn't do was have healthy conflict resolution. They didn't express the challenges, or maybe the environment was not conducive to actually have those discussions, and you had to suppress that stuff. So you have a lot of people that leave instead of being sent or blessed being sent. And so they think they're supposed to be a number one as a lead pastor or launch this ministry or launch this business, when the reality was they're fueled by frustration, not by a word.
And I have to say this on behalf of senior leaders in my seat, because there's both sides of this. Sometimes people leave because there was abuse, there was spiritual abuse.
Definitely.
And we've taught that a lot.
Definitely.
So
Church
I'm not going to do that. Go
Volume 1 and 2.
look at our series. We do a whole
We have
series.
a whole series on that.
Yep.
So sometimes it's abuse, but sometimes they were just suffering. They did not know how to go through that suffering. Now David had rights to leave. He had spears thrown at him. Okay.
Two.
And he was sought out to be killed. Yet he still honored authority. Woo, there's something of powerful, but look what happened on the other side. So I think a lot of leaders skip those life lessons that circle back around when they're the senior leader. And now they have sons and they have spiritual daughters underneath them. And the same thing is being taught from a different chair now with way more weight and responsibility. And they wonder why it won't go forward. It's because you skipped those steps way back, the process of leadership. You didn't let that fathering process, imperfect leader, learn how to work it out. So one of the things
you reap what you sow. I
could have done this way better along the way, but I didn't quit on my relationship with my father. That's one thing that's very, and I know some people have to, and I'm not here to judge anybody that's listening to this podcast that they had to get out. But I think there's a lot of people that didn't. They called it abuse when it was just suffering. I think it's different. And I was suffering. I was not being abused, and I had, our one of our mottos that you'll hear throughout all the podcasts as we go forward is it's a connect culture thing. To grow here, sometimes you have to go there. Yeah. And so that is a byproduct. That motto came out of tough conversations with my father while I felt like I was suffering in ministry, not being able to fulfill the call of God on my life. When in reality, nothing could stop the call of God on my life. No man's going to get in the way of the call of God in my life. Now, it might look different. It might go this way, go that way. But ultimately, if I'm fully submitted to God and under his authority, but also following his principles, like conflict resolution and, talking it out to work it out. There's a whole podcast just on tough conversations. But I see a lot of people skip steps, move on, and that's why they don't embrace the process of leadership. And we probably talked about 4 or 5 different reasons why. That's another one. They left, and they should have stayed and worked it out.
That series, the process of leadership,
and
make sure you jot it down. I need that.
And that's why it's not generational too, because
it is.
There's conflict. There's no respect for authority.
There should be way more generational churches than this. Should not be rare.
It's honestly sad that it's rare.
It's very so rare, but it shouldn't be.
Yeah,
it shouldn't be. And it's for a lot of things I said. Insecurity, because guys weren't fathered well, and fear, that we started with that. And then sometimes I think it's just, we don't know how to navigate conflict. We're terrible. Christians are terrible at conflict. We say
we should be the best at it.
We should be the best.
Because we have the biblical process for it.
God literally laid out A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way. I mean, literally, here's how you do it. There's tons in the Bible on conflict.
But it's these small foxes that spoil the vine. It's these small things that are unaddressed that turn into big things over time that can actually split families and split ministries. And it happens so often. Yeah. It's so sad.
Yeah. Most conflict for people is selfishness, but in ministry, it's insecurity and fear that causes a lot of the conflict, especially between like spiritual fathers and spiritual kids.
I'm still thinking about that microwave quote. That thing was fire, Pops.
What did I say? You have to remember when we go home, you have to tell me what I said tonight.
What'd you say? Microwave, you burn. I don't even remember what it was, but it was fire.
You microwave and then you burn them, and then we're good.
I totally botched it, but it was fire. Go back, rewind the tape.
So I was thinking on the way here, you recently had some, you went on a sabbatical. And
that feels so long ago, just so you know.
He's like, I need another one.
Was that 2018 or 19? I don't remember. 2019. Yeah, 2019.
It was like Gordon MacDonald.
That's one of my mentors, yeah.
So I was kind of thinking of that in the context of generational blessing, building a generational church. And I told you this at the Leaders Circle, but I had woken up one morning, I was driving to work. I heard a news article about a pastor that I loved, broke my heart.
Oh, God.
And I was like, I don't know, deep down within me, I felt like anguish. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like, because you never know what that congregation, it's like, I don't know, 30, 40,000 people go to their church.
Yeah.
So the ripple effect of that, and then the pain of that. And I told you, I'm like, I feel so grateful because I don't have that worry when I go to connect. Like, I don't have the thought in the back of my head, like, I don't know, like, is there going to be something that happens? Like, I feel like we have good oversight. I think we do a good job of like mentorship and having governance at the church. So what did that process look like? And Dev, you've out of anybody I know have done the most, like, I don't know, work in terms of like professionally and personally and growing and getting better as a leader. So how did that process really for both of you as we continue to grow? Because as we grow, it's like the demand is higher, the pressure is higher. There's so many more moving pieces. And maybe some of the conversation you've had even with Gordon for some young leaders that might be listening and they're struggling with the pressure.
Yeah. Whew, that's a
good
podcast right there too.
I want before you answer, because
Go.
I want you to answer it first. I want to make sure it's clear and it's known as we do this podcast. This is one of the spiritual sons of the house as well.
It's true.
And I think you do such a good job at asking the right questions, bringing the right conversations to light. You've been a son of the house for a while, and you have a voice. And one of the things I wanted to do together was he's just as much part of this as you and I when it comes to like father, like son, because this is a
like
spiritual
sons.
son. Exactly. Like
Yeah.
father, like sons is probably even a better title for it. But I want to see more of this. Is although you don't have the last name Frye, you definitely carry our DNA and the kingdom DNA. So I love you asking those questions because integrity did build this house.
Truthfully, you know some of the answers, even though you're asking them. So
absolutely, because I don't know anybody that has more integrity, particularly when you were dating. Of course, Lotta made a commitment that she wasn't going to date, and then 2 days after she made that commitment, she's like, "So I met a guy. His name is Mike, and I'm asking for a little bit of grace on this one." And I was like, "Great." And
she's laughing in the background.
And then 3 months later, we were married.
Here we are.
That's great, Lotta.
I appreciate that, bro. Thank you.
No, seriously, man of integrity. I love that you asked the question. I think we need to have a desire for it first and foremost. Yes, there needs to be disciplines for it, and we can get to maybe the practicals. But what have you said? You've always said integrity and generosity over time equals influence, and that is a slow burn, like you said. It takes a long time, but integrity will defend you in your absence. When you are not present in a room, integrity will defend you. And this ministry is based on that. There has been no moral failures. We've had stuff, we've had issues, we've had problems, but no morality issues when it comes to that. So maybe speak to that a little bit. What would you say to that?
To be completely honest, whenever that question comes up at my season of life, or let's say age and stage, it feels more weighty the older I get, because I have observed so many that went a long time and then, fourth quarter, they fail. So I just say that as a statement and follow up with just like humility is so critical to even answering this question, because anybody, if you think you're standing firm, be careful lest you fall. And I would say, for me personally, as the pastor and spiritual father of our little pond, I would say that passionate spirituality, meaning like just being in love with Jesus, continue to foster that childlike faith, love his word, be a man of prayer and devotion, and then intimacy with my spouse is everything else is by definition a deterrent comparatively. So what a lot of times guys like me can do is we can talk and tout about all the things that we've done to protect the ministry, but there's always a way around all of those things if you are not making your priority relationship, keeping it active, in your number two relationship with your spouse active. So I have to say that at the outset.
So good.
And then, when you're trying to discern things, God gave us tools. And I think he gave us our eyes, our heart, and our ears, in our ears. So like we're basically looking for signs. So when I say our eyes, I don't even mean our spiritual eyes. I mean like physical eyes. And one of the things that I do with other pastors now, but which keeps me in check, is most failures, most people that fall, most, stories that end up being plastered all over social media are a problem of speed. People are simply moving too fast.
Oh.
And so you can love Jesus, you can love your wife, you can have all these deterrents, but people are going too fast. If you think about that in the natural realm, what caused you to break your leg down the ski slope? You were going too fast. You were not paying attention to different things. It was dark. It was late. You were tired. All those things. So most of it is just
cause you to snap your Achilles and pickleball. Just quick movements.
Thanks.
Just for
Thanks. Little sidebar. But anyway, it's speed. Yeah. How do you get in trouble? You're going too fast. You got to slow down. So one thing I'm learning is like how to create some pace in this race of ministry, so that doesn't happen.
You mentioned you came back from a pastor's trip, and you told me, and we always debrief whenever you go to some of these pastors' events, and you were like, I'm concerned about a couple of these guys. And you were saying that for years before. And we would never expose it on this, but when the moral failure happened with particularly one of these guys, there was no surprise.
None.
Because you could see the signs ahead of time.
My eyes showed me that.
Exactly. Just through discernment.
Yeah.
And the primary thing you said was, he's going too fast. I'm concerned for him. He looks tired. I don't see his wife often.
And I was intentionally exposing Devon. We decided...
And this, I think, is a factor when it comes to longevity and integrity.
Yeah. We've decided as parents to expose... And even, this isn't just our biological kids, our spiritual kids. Like, this is what we do at our Leadership Academy. We basically... Yep. We have case studies out loud.
Yep.
We talk. We don't expose people. We're not trying to spotlight sin. We're trying to shed light on on darkness, so that we don't do it. So we've tried to do that with Devon in particular, and his ascension to succeed me, is like I need to bring him in on these things, because I want him to see. Look. Pay attention. Write these things out. Bookmark these things in your brain. These things you need to make sure that they're like tattooed to your soul, so they don't happen again. Going too fast. Too fast. We've just seen too many of them.
And we have conversations like that. And I think at a younger age, I think most people are enamored with people's gifts. Your gifts, Proverbs says, brings you before great men. Most people would be enamored by gifts, but I think I am more enticed by character and integrity more, only because you have exposed that, mom has exposed that at a young age. And I want to have longevity more than I want to have fame or impact or even influence. And so I want to be in this for the long haul. And I think those conversations we've had behind the scenes with our family, you and I, many different times, make a passion for integrity and longevity,
which means
good character.
Which means we have to have a preoccupation with backstage over front stage.
Yes.
So there's so much in ministry that's about the front stage. And who and where do you talk about backstage? Where do you get to see, things that nobody talks about? That's one of the things I've been frustrated with, honestly, with ministers, is they just don't talk about it. And if they do, it's like a little bit, or it's way past the time when it was relevant to talk about it. And so that's another example. We try to go there so you can grow here and push it right up to the line of not indiscretion. So it's like there's tension between like keeping it a secret and being indiscreet. But there's that tension. We try to get right to that line not for the again, spotlighting sin, but shedding light to keep people from falling into sin.
Do you find there's a correlation with the influence too? So it's like speed is a huge piece of it. But is there, like, as you grow in influence, and it could just be, for example, as you grow in fruit, because that's really how people view it. It's
that's what you observe with your eyes. Fruit.
Yeah, they're like, dude, they have 100,000 followers now. Like, it's got to be crazy. And it might be that things speed up a little bit because doors open, there's opportunities, and it's like as those things are growing, some things grow together. But do you think it's more speed, or do you think you can be at a really high level of influence And for example, like talking with a Gordon MacDonald and being like, okay, we're growing this and we have this going on with the businesses and we have this going on with the church. Was that why you were was the Lord speaking to you about that? Like, listen, I need to talk to you about this because this is where I'm bringing you and your family and your church. Or how did that kind of flow in terms of the Gordon MacDonald thing? Because
I mean, he's 84 years old, and it's funny because he doesn't care about all that stuff. What I love about him is he's been there, done that. You know, he was an advisor to the president. He's written books that have sold hundreds of thousands, and, he lives in a little home in New Hampshire and just a simple life. And if I talk to him about projects and problems and, scale that most people I can't go to, but I could talk to him about, the first thing he's going to ask, how's things going with Stacy and you? When's the last time you went on vacation?
Wow.
I think you need to see a therapist over that. I'm not qualified for that. I think he's qualified. He's been through everything. He's like, no, you need somebody better for that than me.
Wow.
He's always going inside. He's always going backstage. He's always going, how is your soul? How is your soul? So I went to him for his experience and savvy, and honestly, a friend connected me to him. Chris Gepner connected me to him, and it was initially a small group, but it ended up being he became an example, a role model of a healthy soul. And I want to finish like that. My pastor's a beast leader, but he's a man of integrity. He's a man of humility. He's a man of personal disciplines and routines. And he's not trying to be all flashy. And he could have, honestly, I think he has more influence. I mean, we look at influence through the lens of social media. That is not the only lens of influence. That is actually small thinking. You're talking about, I mean, if I told you what I know about my churches, my pastor's church, I mean, it's insane, the influence of that church, but it's not showing up on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook or whatever.
It's like the last focus.
It's their last thing, but they're changing the world. So, and a lot of it has to do with the process of leadership. This was a man who was fathered well by his dad, Pastor Chris Hodges, and then he had all these other spiritual fathers, Larry Stockstill, just giants, backstage giants that helped him be successful on a front stage. And then he's focused on leaders, not just on crowds. But he ends up reaching way that's why I love this podcast, because it's not that I don't care about my neighbors and the crowds and all that kind of stuff. I just don't care about it in comparison to like, if I could talk to a leader, I'm going to influence hundreds, maybe thousands of lives through that leader. I got to double down. When I see the end draws near, to Jesus' return, and I'm older, it's just an investment plan for me. I got to double down. I got to invest more in the best way possible. So I think I'll have more influence in the last 15 years of my life by far than the previous 50. There's no doubt in my mind.
One of the things that really impacted me, I remember you were telling a story about there was a moral failure, and Pastor Chris, you talked about how Pastor Chris covered them like as a father would. But in the media, he's getting ripped. So he's getting torn apart through all the influence of social media and the speed of like the beauty of life. And that really impacted me. I don't know if I've ever told you that, but I was thinking about that from that lens. I'm like, it's amazing that a man can look past the abuse of the media to cover somebody and to love somebody through a mistake that they made through the speed of like success and ministry. And we were, this weekend we're at Connect Youth, which is for our church, it's middle school, high school students. And the resounding theme was, I'm tired. I'm just burnt. I'm just burnt out. I'm tired. It was and it's like the speed of life is so fast now. It's like, and to compete and to feel good enough.
Right.
It's like, you have to do that. I can't tell you how many students are starting businesses. Can I tell you what they're not ready for? Starting a business. Like all of them. And there's not a single one. There's 4 leaders that I know of that are the best leaders. They're not ready.
See, they're skipping preparation. They're going, that's a perfect example of going to promotion. They're going to provision. They're going to the last thing. They want to get to that without preparation. And
It's the third part of the series right there.
there you go. There's the third part. And that's that pressure. That's that outside pressure to perform. It's also like kind of the culture is trying to say, this is how whatever you build it, that's how you have to maintain it.
Yeah,
So
whatever you build it on is what
that's
it
how
has to
you
be
have to be
sustained by.
maintained on. So if it's on entertainment, you got to build on entertainment. If it's on money, you got to make more money to be happy. So if it's not an internal building edifice, like if I think that this will be a thought for anyone out there there's a lot of people that want to move fast, and don't get me wrong, I think there's a tension to manage on speed with ministry. Like I think God's up to something, but I grew up in a generation, how do I say it? I grew up in a generation with we're the last generation mindset. My dad was convinced they were the last generation. They would see Jesus come back. And then our generation, I would say right now, is a revival generation. The last days, it's the final revival. The problem with that is it shuts down stewardship. It shuts down legacy and generational thinking. That's the problem.
Wow.
So I think we should be believing for now, but investing in the future. I think we should be believing for the best, preparing for the worst. I think there's this. Both things are supposed to be happening simultaneously. There's a marriage between those two. So I'm all like, there's a part of me that's heavily convinced that we are very close to Christ's return and we need to double down. We need to make things. But there's another part of me that says, everybody's been saying that for hundreds and hundreds of years. And simultaneously, I know I'm sort of dominating here. I think God was I'll use David and Solomon. I think God was more interested in building a cathedral in David's heart than a temple through David. And so I think a lot of pastors miss that. I think a lot of future ministers, future leaders miss that he's trying to build something in you so he can build something through you. And they skip that. They just think it's all about this. So David had something in his heart that was cool. I want this for my God. But God had something in his heart for David that he was skipping.
It's Ephesians 3:20.
Yes. And so why do kids get frustrated? Is because they're building the wrong cathedral. But in the old days, they'd build, I don't know, some of the biggest Sistine Chapel, all these things. They took 200, 300 years to build. People went in with a generational mindset to build a church.
Wow.
We don't have that anymore.
Wow.
We think we got to build a
So
mega
true.
church in 5-10 years. And if we don't, we suck, we failed. It's over. Ichabod, the glory of the Lord has lifted, and he's not on me, he's on somebody else. Because that rocket ship singularity, because by the way, it is statistically, when you look at, I got friends of like fast growing churches in America. They're an anomaly. And there's sometimes a phenomenological special thing about all that. And you don't know what's going on behind that. You don't know all the pain they went through to get to that. You don't know all the generational process of leadership to get to that. So you just look at it and you think that was a flash in the pan that should happen for everybody. No. Cathedrals are built over time. And so, oh my God, that's a big one there. And I think that's why the next generation is feeling all this pressure to do something right away. Just let God do his work inside and watch what he does in such a short period of time once the inside work is done. So that's what I think is happening now. I actually think God's like, Deryck, finally, you're accepting these lessons. Now watch me bless your church. Now watch what I'm going to do through your ministry. Now watch how I'm going to, watch me put the pedal to the metal now.
This man's in
Just
his
watch.
bag right now.
Yeah, watch me put the pedal to the metal. So I think it's going to cook now. I do. And I just want to make sure I don't microwave it, that I don't get burned and I don't mess this thing up. So I'm just like, Lord, help me steward this. I know he's ready to take off. I'm just like, help me rudder this without messing it up. Don't let me go into rocks. Don't let me abandon ship some stupid thing. Just I know this thing's got gasoline in it and this is going to take off and the wave's right behind me. Just help me not mess it up.
How do you manage the speed? And that's for you too, Dev, because I think you're doing it really well right now. Where it's a tension to be managed. Like you said, it's part of it is like we gotta go, and there's a lot of amazing things that we're doing, and there's people that we're reaching, and there's people that we're not reaching because we are breaking through a lid right now. I feel like in our ministry,
Absolutely.
it's like God is so close to like breaking through with us. So there's a tension, like you said, but I guess how do you how do you manage that? And we can even bring this into
Are
this.
we in the Amazon jungle? I don't know. Occasionally I see.
Yeah, there's a
mosquitoes.
velociraptor
There's-
on that freaking
biggest
thing.
bug.
I wasn't
There's
gonna
the
say
biggest
anything,
bug
but now that you said that, that is a freaking pterodactyl on that light. Dude, get this thing out of here, dude. What?
It's the largest mosquito I've ever seen in my
I
entire
felt like
life.
this is a Jurassic Park scene.
Seriously, where's Chris Pratt?
Let's take 30 seconds. Let's do this.
I'm gonna freaking kill this
Let's
thing.
kill that.
This freaking son
there
of
he
a
is.
gun.
Right there. He's right there on the table.
We are totally keeping
Good.
this
Use
in.
my towel. Praise the Lord. Let's not.
That's what mine gave me.
Dang, you toast?
I'm kidding.
That's his preaching towel.
Hold on.
It was.
No,
It was screeching towel. We're going to take 2 because I'm going to go close those doors downstairs.
Look at this.
That's why. Yes.
Look at the size of
Oh gosh! Oh god, dude, that's disgusting.
I'm so glad. I'm glad all this is just rolling.
That
This
right
is
there,
the part of the podcast
If
for
it
me.
bites me, it will kill me. Like,
Really?
Yeah, I am
there's a-
so allergic.
Wow.
Are you serious?
I
Oh, she gets bit on that.
Oh, that's
her
all we need
ankle.
is the final scene.
Yeah, exactly.
I couldn't hold it any longer. I was like, this is just a scene.
I was trying to be
I'm
professional,
like,
and then when he
I know
said
this
something,
environment is cool, but this is all gonna be on camera. Bugs flying. They're not
when
gonna
he
pay
said
attention.
something, I was like, "Oh, thank God," because that thing was distracting.
I thought it was so funny when you dropped that microwave line and Dev
He
Dev
lost
told
it.
you completely lost your chain of
I don't
thought,
remember
dude.
what I said.
You were gone.
I don't remember what I said. I don't remember what I said.
It just was.
I
It
still
was
don't
like
even
the
remember
perfect line. It was. It was a metaphor. It was an analogy. It was beautiful.
I don't think this could be going any better than it is, so just keep going.
I really want to take more of a focus on how your intimate relationship with your wife plays into everything we just talked about.
So my sex life, that's what we're going to?
Yes, that's the
okay,
first
great.
I would
Precisely.
rather not talk
Wow.
about that. But
My son is gonna be devastated.
More so, how like when you're building something with speed and with influence, and the dynamic of the schedule and the CEO and the business owner and all of your spiritual sons and daughters are reaching out to you at the same time with all these issues and time and nag. It's like, I need it. I need you. I need you. I need you. I need you. And then you're traveling, you're moving, you're going. So there is a speed to the ministry.
Yep.
And within the context of like maybe some young leaders or somebody in their 20s who's just got married. Lotta and I just got married.
Yep.
The biggest tension that I feel is schedule. And you said that to us before we got married was like, you have to manage the tension of the schedule. And we've had so many conversations. That's the main thing that we have found that has brought conflict in, because we want to be together and we love being together.
Right.
And then when there's the speed of life and commitments. So how do you navigate that in the context of where you guys are, specifically with the hats that you wear
Yeah.
in the context of the ministry?
Dev will have a lot of practicals for this. I'm not saying one of principles too, but I have some principles that have helped me. And I will say I am a student. I say this about humility. I'll say this about my calendar now too. I am still a student, not a master of calendar. I think it's a constant learning. I don't think you ever just like, oh, I got it. I'm a master of
constant
calendar.
adjusting too.
Your iterations and tweaks and adjustments and
Yep.
because if you don't continuously work on it, just like your health or your devotional life, or you pick an area, it will get out of control like that.
100%.
So I also, if I'm speaking to like pastors or of churches, like I always tell people, it might be the most important hire you have. I'm a big advocate of administrative giftings. I think
Praise God
speaking
for
to male and
admins.
female, from a gender standpoint, traditionally it's been more female, but I don't think it has to be that way. Administrative giftings.
Shout out to
are
all the
most
man assistants out there. We love you
underrated-
guys.
Yes,
we love you
yes,
guys.
Yes, and all the man verses.
Is that a
people-
term?
I think it was just led by the Spirit.
Yeah.
Dad's dropping microwave
Man
bombs. I'm
assistants.
dropping man assistant
Yeah, I don't know
bombs.
about that one.
That's the most important thing you said.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm really glad that my wisdom could really help you guys.
That's Devin's next podcast. That's Devin's
Exactly.
next
Shout out to the man assistants.
Devin's next podcast is man assistants.
Oh my gosh.
How to assist. Anyway,
You're probably going to get
Those are the
hate.
two biggest value adds: the man assistants and the freaking dinosaur that just drove by me, flew by me.
There's going to be
Wow.
a clip of that, bro, and you're going to get crucified on social. You are going to get crucified on social.
I just embrace it at this point.
Oh,
man
dude.
assistants.
I get so much hate online.
But it's an underrated, back to reality. It is so underrated how important that is. But we Stacy and I have a understanding that there's no work-life balance. It's rhythms. Underneath that is just this idea we're gonna there's no not working hard, but we gotta play hard. Work hard, play hard. Work hard, play hard. So because I'm more prone in our marriage in ministry, this is an evolution. I wasn't always this way. And Devon actually he was exposed to ministry. He can speak to this where he didn't. If he was asked a question or interviewed by another pastor, what do you want to be? There was years he didn't know what he wanted to be. But if you asked him, what do you not want to be? He probably would have said
top of the list
pastor.
was ministry.
Yeah. And that had to do with what I'm talking about right now. The play hard part was missing. Yeah, because that's what I saw.
It didn't look like there was joy in ministry.
The truth is,
because there was always problems, there was always crisis, there was always people coming over the house, there was always dads out of the house.
Because I saw it like really early in ministry with my mom and dad. Their house was like a revolving door. People were in and out. In the early years, it was awesome. I watched my dad in our carport, whatever you want to call it, cutting a guy's hair that didn't know Jesus, and he's witnessing to him. Now, if you cut a guy's hair, they have to listen. You know what I mean? So he would leverage that. So he's barbering people's hair, witnessing them Jesus, and he had a line because he cut it for free. That was one of his ministries in the neighborhood, and people would come over the house.
Now, they were the ugliest men you've ever seen.
Yeah, no, the bowl cut wasn't good, but it was, it was free. And then my mother would serve
I'm loving
people.
This podcast. I'm enjoying this.
My mother. Anyway,
I
lost it.
It's gonna be like father, like Mike as a son.
It's like
he goes from man assistant to.
It should just be called like father because I feel like I'm by my. It should be called like father because I feel like I'm by myself. Really trying to be serious. I feel like I'm completely on my own. Like, how do you lead these two? How do you lead sons? There should be a podcast. How to lead sons that don't listen.
I came from service to preach tonight. I left all the spiritual juice at church tonight.
Clearly.
I'm hungry. I'm hungry, to be honest.
But I saw fun, and then I saw what happened was ministry. There was regrets, there was hurts, there was betrayals, and they shut down. And then the doors in the house closed and the openness and transparency kind of pulled up. And basically I saw walls go up. So then
tell them about the white couch.
Yeah, my mother had a, I don't know, velour white couch in the living room that literally like 35 years later looked brand new. I mean, she used to manage the sunlight. Condition. She used to manage the sunlight coming in so it wouldn't fade. That evolved into a different philosophy where work equaled worth. You work hard, that's your worth. So I saw like my dad communicated 16-hour days, ministry, help the people, save the people. So when I came in, that was my world. That was how I was going to move up the chain. That was how I was going to make a difference for God. And then my family, in particular my firstborn, saw the worst side of that. So work hard, play hard is massive. I'm actually now responsible for planning the next trip and scheduling the little getaways and things like that. That's my role in the home because I have that predisposition to like go, Mach 5 with my hair. Well, my hair's not on fire, but Mach 5.
Your hair's gone.
My hair is actually gone from ministry. This is because of ministry.
Is that with your wife or is that with your family? So like
a mix
or both?
It's a mix. Mostly my wife, but definitely family. Like we schedule family time, family vacations, things like that.
You guys do a week. You guys do what, a week every summer?
Minimal. We try to do 2 vacations together as a family. Yeah. Yeah. And those are traditions that are like, it's like all the kids know, like, no, that's what we do, period. And it resets our family, reboots our family. It's generational. We've been we went to one place for almost 30 plus years. Same spot every single year. Memories there. So many things have happened on those vacations that were so impactful.
It's just those traditions.
Oasis. That's a powerful.
As soon as
tradition.
I get to that place,
everybody shuts off. Resets our family.
Yeah,
we've done a lot of things on those things. Shut the cell phones off. We're playing games. We're long walks and talks. All that stuff were huge. But work hard, play hard is an oversimplification of the problem. But obviously, there's not a week go by where I don't have to meet with my assistant and like, okay, we're gonna have to make some pivots here. Basically it's like withdraw withdraw.
Weekly.
It's Sabbath daily, withdraw weekly, and retreat monthly. Is an oversimplification. What I think pastors don't do.
Good. I think divert daily, withdraw weekly,
and
what was it?
And retreat monthly.
Retreat regularly,
and
abandon annually.
That's what it was. There you go. Thank you.
Yeah.
You got me.
Yeah. And a couple things to say on that. One is when it comes to work hard, play hard, and then also like a time tip thing. I felt like as soon as you started to play and enjoy ministry, I don't know, my eyes were opened a little bit more to where I'm like, I think as a young man, I thought, I don't want to subject myself to that kind of life for the rest of my life. Where we already have our own problems. Then carrying the problems of the whole church is a significant thing. And to be honest, there was a season, we've talked about this in private settings. This was one of the tougher conversations we had in the past, was I felt like the church stole my dad from me. And so there was a season where I was like, it's not that I didn't have a father. My father loved me. Dad loved me very well. But there was a season where just because of the constant demand of the church, it felt like he wasn't there. And it was a difficult season for us, for me in particular. And so when I started seeing you have joy and fun, and I remember this one particular event where you went to Montana and you came back and you talked about all the incredible stories. You got to shoot prairie dogs on the back of a truck and go fishing.
Listen to Eminem with my hat on backwards.
It was awesome.
You know, with a black Denali in the back shooting prairies with scopes, laser scopes.
You started to get some real friends in ministry at that point.
Yes.
And you really invested in that.
And actually ministry accelerated through those relationships. So
100%.
like our mission acceleration was a byproduct of a relationship that I had on that retreat in Montana. Yeah.
And isn't that so God? Is that you do more ministry through deep-rooted relationship like that.
Yep.
And I feel like you started to get the joy in ministry. Not that you were like depressed before, but I started seeing you enjoy ministry. I started seeing the impact of ministry and not just the burdens of all of it. And then I think my heart started to warm up to like, I'd be open to that. And I see the work hard, play hard balance. And I feel like our ministry is doing a lot better than it's ever been before because of that role.
That's another podcast, is the relational fun side. But like people ask, I will unapologetically say what I'm going to say. Like, I am not a filthy rich person, but I am rich relationally. I truly am. But there was a day I wasn't. And a lot of that was because I was not intentional in relationships. So I know we sort of got into another realm, but I think that, having fun in ministry and having relationships outside and inside are so important. But on the practical, which is where you were before.
Oh yeah, I want to say something on that too.
Yeah, go ahead. You go first.
Yeah, I think with the practical, I do three things, 3 E's: evaluate, eliminate, and execute. So I would constantly, incessantly tinker your schedule, constantly. What's working, what's not working, what should be sustained, what should be started, what should be stopped, and then eliminate stuff. Because I think there's a lot of things. Here's the principle that the Lord gave me a couple years back, is I have given you enough time to do the right things, not everything. And my heart is big. You're a pastor. Our hearts are big. You lead the youth. You pastor the youth. Our hearts are huge, and we have so many problems, so many people, so many needs. Not every need is my responsibility. I am not Superman. I'm not their savior. Now, we can broker relationships. We can pastor. I love your line you gave at Leader Circle, pastor through people, not just to people. I think that was so helpful, but we have to eliminate some stuff because God gives us just enough time to do the right things, not everything. And then there are some things we just got to execute on. So we got to concentrate on certain things in certain seasons. So a season right now, I know that this season won't last forever, but my sons are 6. My son is 6 and 3 years old, Zion and Ezra. And as they have graduated and gotten older, the older they get, typically the more present the dad gets, because they're graduating from where mom's needs to be way more attentive and affirming to now dad needs to be a lot more present. Zion's playing basketball on Thursdays.
Thank you, Jesus.
Ezra, yeah, thank God. He's
questionable what's going to happen with that, but anyway.
I would say he's not the best basketball player I've ever seen in my life, but we're working on his character. Ezra,
he has fun.
Ezra is probably going to be an MMA fighter based on his aggressive personality traits.
Seriously.
But he starts soccer this weekend or next weekend. So I can't. Did you know that?
He plays MMA on the soccer field.
Exactly. He's like,
Just decking
actually,
people.
matter of fact, the boys are playing soccer that he's playing with, but he's playing MMA while they're playing soccer.
That's what I meant.
So it's gonna be fantastic. We're gonna bring our video guy. It's gonna be incredible.
Oh,
Probably a
kids are
lawsuit waiting to
bruisers.
happen, but that's besides the point. So I just know because of the season we're in, we got to be more present during their youth because I don't want to miss these seasons. So there are some things that you just gotta execute on. I think that's been really helpful for us.
Totally. I agree.
I think this has been awesome podcast. And I think we talked a lot about your dad. And I remember you sharing a story about him. There was an accident, and I won't take. Maybe we could end it with just an honor for obviously like father, like son. And I think this is a great start to what's going to be a beautiful podcast. And maybe we can start it with the honor of where you saw your dad really start the ministry and the way that he viewed people and the way he loved people, and maybe share that story with the audience.
Yeah. That was certainly super impactful, and I'll end with that. But one really impactful thing too was just listening to my father pray. My father he called it his trysting place. I didn't even know what that meant until I was like 30. But
I still don't know what it means.
does that mean?
I'm 31.
It was a special place, and it was really, he just had a room. It was a closet, a room that he created in the basement of our home. And he wouldn't even say basement, he'd say the bowels of the house. He always had
Sounds like he's from like Lord of the Rings.
crazy words.
The
Yeah,
bowels of
he was.
Sauron.
He talked like, J.R. Tolkien. Like he was like, seriously, C.S. Lewis and him were like best friends. But I got to listen to him pray, and the way that the, house was designed, you could hear it come through the floorboard. So I'd be in bed listening to my father talk to God.
Wow.
So what a legacy to hear something like that. It's one thing to hear your father preach, it's quite another to hear him pray and talk to God in his privacy. So that was a huge one. But then I got to see my father. So I got to see his devotion, and then I got to see his heart. And we were one time going to this beach. I think it's in Rhode Island, Misquamicut Beach in Rhode Island.
Sorry, what was that? Was it tongues? What did you say?
Misquamicut. Yeah, pray for the interpretation.
Misquamicut?
Pray for that.
Is that in
Lord,
Massachusetts
give me the interpretation
or
of that word.
Mars?
Yeah, Shundatama Botai. And we were in traffic, and unbeknownst to us, there was actually an intersection of traffic, but we were backed up. One of those beach trips where it's just all backed up. And this people are trying to get out and go down, and they get stopped because it was just, there was no moving. But this motorcycle decided he's going to go out and he's going to take off. So he rips down the side, not knowing there's an intersection, and person braked, the car went across, clipped this motorcyclist, and he came off the motorcycle, but it literally, I don't know how, but he sliced his neck to the point of almost coming off. And he was laid out on the ground, bleeding out, and my father saw the whole thing. I'll just never forget it. I'm like 11 or 12 years old, something like that. And he just, you guys stay here. And he just jumps out of the car. And it was like 3 or 4 cars down so I could see him. And he gets down on the ground beside this kid. And he just starts yelling at him. Do you know Jesus? Do you know Jesus? And the kid's like not talking, he's gagging or something. And he's like, you're going to die. Have you given your life to Jesus? Have you surrendered? You're like, no, I haven't. He goes, do you want to make sure you're okay with Jesus? And the guy's like, yes. And he goes, confess Jesus is your Lord and Savior.
Wow.
Say, I'm a sinner. And literally he's like, in Jesus' name. And he prayed over him real fast. The guy died, gone.
Wow.
And then I just remember my father just getting back in the car, and he's like, puts the car in drive. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Like another day at the office.
Yeah, wow,
that was my dad.
That was
another day at the office. Like, let's go to the beach. Want ice cream? What do you guys? We're like, what was that? That was my old man.
That's what you get in the bowels, man.
One of a kind.
That's
man.
what you get in the bowels.
The bowels
One
of
of a kind.
Sauron right
Yes.
there.
Sauron.
That's insane. Wow.
Lord of the Rings with Pops.
Yeah.
He was one of a kind.
He was.
That's in our legacy.
Yeah.
Generational leadership for a broken generation.
So listen, this is Like Father, Like Son. We love you guys so much. Thank you for
It's
tuning
been
in. You can subscribe if you want. That'd be fantastic.
We love that. Leave some comments below.
Obviously, share.
What are some things you want us to talk about? We'd love to see that. We'll be reading all those comments. Be very helpful for us. We'll talk about anything and everything.
How do you feel about what Dev said about a lot of different things? Why don't you give some comments about some of the
If
jokes
you want
that
something
Dev
on the
had
man
today?
assistant, please DM him privately.
can't
I don't
wait
want
to
to
see
see
those
it in the
comments.
chat.
We will hire a man assistant for Mike. That's what we'll do. We'll do that.
Love you guys. We'll see you next time.
Peace.
That's a wrap.
Oh my Lord.
That was fun, man.
There's a lot of stuff clips of the dinosaur flying by.
Oh, dude.
You'll get them tonight.
Can someone get that pterodactyl before he lands on?
Oh gosh.
Oh, they're everywhere. Wow.
That thing's
That thing will legit kill me.